My full name is George Rutledge Woolley. My lacrosse nickname is Jeep. My big brother's name was Eugene. And in those days, in Popeye comics, they had a little character called Eugene the Jeep. He's a little, about this high, and had the big bulbous nose and the floppy ears, and used to bounce around, Jeep, 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 Jeep. Now, some people say that's where the American vehicle come from in the war, because this was before the Second World War. My brother's name was Eugene. He hated it. He didn't like Gene. So he ended up as a regimental sergeant major in the Army and called himself Bill. That's how much he liked. However, when we were young, Eugene, they called him Jeep, after Eugene the Jeep, just Jeep. And I was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, and I was little Jeep. And as I grew up, the name just caught. And then once you get into sports, of course, nicknames are forever. I'm still Jeep. Very few people know my real name. I lived in St. James, a suburb of Winnipeg, and played at the Deer Lodge Community Club. Elmwood was pretty important because we played most of our games there, but we think Deer Lodge was pretty important. Well supported, and it was fun playing there, really. Well, when I moved from the North End to St. James, I was 14, I guess, grade 8, and some of my new friends played lacrosse, and they said, "Come on over," and to watch. And I went over and I met Tom O'Brien, who was the father of lacrosse in Deer Lodge. He had come from the east. I'm not sure exactly where, but he started lacrosse, and I talked to him, and before I knew it, he had a stick for me. And in those days, you didn't need much more than a stick, so that got me started, and I loved the game, of course. That's my stick, yeah. It needs to be. We used to get the oily leather part and put a ball or two in it, and then set it overnight, and then we would develop a pocket, a proper pocket. This would be like using a tennis racket, because it's very stiff because it's been sitting for years. And the catgut goes on forever. This is starting to break here, little pieces. I mean, because it is tough, I'll tell you. Yeah. But that's it, and I don't know who makes the new ones, but they look so flimsy.
Oh, plastic?
Yeah, they're all plastic. Yeah, we used to work on them all the time, make sure they were in perfect shape. And some guys had huge pockets. I didn't even know how they threw the ball. They weren't cheap, and to get a stick, that was the most important part, because in those days we weren't exactly rolling in money. So I have three children, 2 boys, 60, 50, and a daughter, 50, and 7 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. I moved away from Deer Lodge when I got married, and by the time we had the children and they got to the age where they would play lacrosse, we weren't in an area that played lacrosse. So, and I was so involved in football, I didn't have time to get them involved in lacrosse. Well, I was always in sales and marketing. I worked originally, like most Winnipeg boys who got out of high school, I went to the railway first, CNR, in the passenger traffic department. And then I worked for a number of years as a detail man in pharmaceuticals. I went to Canadian Shanley Distilleries for 4 years. And then I joined Labatt's. And I was with Labatt's for 30 years. From Labatt's, I was with the Bombers as director of marketing for 6 years. And then I ended up at a friend of a friend wanted to start a microbrewery, so I said I'd help him for 6 months and spent 6 years there at Fort Garrybury. But I always tell everybody I went from drugs to booze to beer. I'm just a player. I never coached or managed or anything. Because when I got to the point there where I would have been coaching or managing, I already moved away from Deer Lodge, and I just never. Well, I went to Alberta for 4 years, and at that time Alberta didn't have lacrosse. And by the time I got back, I was doing other things, you know.
Yes.
I'd moved on, so to speak. I guess the biggest one was winning the Western Championship with the All-Stars in '51 and going east on the train, 2 days to get there. We played Mimico Mountaineers. And the thing about the thing I remember most about that, we had about 12 legitimate Junior A players in Manitoba, our whole league, because we had a Manitoba Junior Senior League at the time. So we had to pick up 3 or 4 juveniles to play. Meanwhile, Ontario had over 200 registered junior lacrosse players, and they were allowed to pick up 2 extras. I thought, what is? Anyway, no, going on that was a great trip. And we lost in 3 games, but we were proud of ourselves. Other than that, we won the senior championship at Deer Lodge 2 or 3 times, and I won the scoring championship, I can't remember, a couple of times, and things like that you remember well, and the good times with the guys. Oh, I can tell you one thing. When I first started, Tom O'Brien again, the first time we played in Elmwood, he all gave us a nickel to get on the streetcar to go from Deer Lodge to Elmwood, which was about 3/4 of an hour, because it was from one side of the city to the other. Then of course you played the game and you got on, you got the nickel to go back, and you got on the streetcar and you're all dirty and stinky. So we all had to sit at the back because everybody else would move away from us. But things like that, you know. I think one thing, the Winnipeg Press Club was the oldest press club in Canada, and every year they had Beer and Skits, which was a show written by local writers and everything, and it was a takeoff on the politics, of course. We had a Winnipeg skit, a provincial skit, and a federal skit, and it was like music. We used all the old Broadway songs, and they would write music to it. And I was in that 25 years, and that was a huge amount of fun. Things like that. Coaching, I had a long football coaching career. I coached high school, junior, senior, the University of Manitoba Bisons for 6 years. Won the Canadian Junior Championship 3 times. We're the only team from Winnipeg to ever win the Junior Championship. 55, 56, 61. Coached football in Alberta. I won the provincial juniors in Alberta, provincials in Manitoba twice. So football was a big part of my life, yeah. Most goalies are right-handed, so I would fake to the right top corner and put it in the left top corner, because putting it in the right, they had their glove, but the left top corner, they had a tough time stopping that. That was my favorite shot, yeah. As soon as he started to move, I'd pop at the other one, yeah. One thing I never learned was, which I really admired when I was watching the BC team, was their over-the-shoulder back pass. You know, they would get the circle around your defense, and they would put that over their shoulder, bang, right to the guy next to him. And I always thought that was really neat, but I tried it and I missed more than I got, so I forget it. One thing I remember too, I was the first player in Manitoba to wear a helmet. In those days, we were really smart. We didn't wear helmets. Can you imagine? I can show you my teeth if you'd like. Because if you got through 5 or 6 years of lacrosse with your teeth, you were amazing. Because it's so silly. You move the stick's up here all the time. So if somebody goes to check your stick, you move your stick away, and your face is left there. So bad. Anyway, I went to BC with my mom, and I was 14. When I just started, watched the Vancouver Burrards. I'll never forget it. Play Victoria, whatever it was. But anyway, on the Burrard team, they had 2 big defensemen, and they had these helmets on. And I studied them, and they looked like U.S. military helmets. So I inquired, and I found out that, yeah, they have a plastic lining. They weren't the steel part. They were just a plastic liner. So my brother being in the military, I said, can you get me a couple of those? Didn't want one. I wanted somebody else to wear it with me to share, because we got a lot of jibes from the crowd, believe me, for wearing a helmet. Donnie Leach, a good buddy of mine. So I got 2 of these liners, and we were first to wear them, and it was the start. This was later in seniors. I didn't wear them in junior when we were playing down east or anything. But that was kind of the start of it, and it saved me a lot of cuts. The only basic, there's not too many things different other than the equipment. Now they wear a lot of padding, and they wear helmets with face masks, which is very, very smart. The one thing I see is, I haven't figured it out yet, or haven't talked to anybody about it, is their system of bringing 6 guys on at a time. We didn't do that. We played both, and you change 1, 2, or change a line, or change 2 defensemen. But now they have that, and they have a pause. They seem to pause, and if we did it in our day, they'd be down scoring on us while we're changing on and off. They take the whole team off. They got nothing but space. What you would do is, if you wanted to change, is you would pass the ball around, and to let your guys get off and on. So. But that was about all. So it was a very quick moving game up and down. Like you'd have shots on one net and another one. Now I see they've got a time that they've got to shoot within, I don't know what the time is, but at least they've got it. When I first watched it, I thought, I was watching a college game, and these guys pass that ball around. So I said, how boring can you get? How can you get people out to watch you when you're standing passing the ball around? I don't know. I think it's growing, especially the field game seems to be really growing big time. When I played early, there was no such thing. It was strictly box. They had played field before many years ago, but and it seems to be growing in colleges, and it's big in the States. So when it's big in the States, everything seems to. So I can see a future in that. In the box game, I don't know when it'll progress to professional leagues playing, province to province to province, hard to tell.